go when you die? Some people think that you just cease to exist. Other people believe that you either go to heaven or hell. Some people just don't know. So today we're going to talk about people on their deathbeds and their last words. And then maybe you can figure it out. Maybe I can figure it out. Where some of us are going and where some have already gone. I think it's a real big subject. So let's just get right into it, okay? Into it. Have you ever heard of Anton LaVey? He was the author of the Satanic Bible, and he was a high priest of the religion dedicated to Satan. The worship of Satan. Who wants to do that? But there's a lot of them. But anyway, some of his famous quotes. There is a beast in man that needs to be exorcised, not exorcised. Like, exorcising the demons. But the strange thing is, his dying words are, oh my, what have I done? There's something very wrong. There is something very wrong. And then he died. See, I think what happened at the very minute he died, he realized that he was screwed over by Satan. Satan always promises that you're going to be a god. If you serve him, you're going to get riches. You're going to have a kingdom. And I think the minute that he was dying, he realized who he really served. I think that's crazy. The daughter of Joseph Stalin, she told at her father's death, my father died a difficult and terrible death. God grants an easy death only to the just. At what seemed the very last moment, he suddenly opened his eyes and cast a glance over everyone in the room. It was a terrible glance, insane, perhaps angry. His left hand was raised, as though he were pointing to something above and bringing down a curse on us all, she said. Wow, can you believe that? The gesture was full of menace. The next moment, he was dead. This is his own daughter's report. She knew her dad probably better than anybody else in the room. And she said he had a terrible look on his face. I guess we know where he went, if you believe in hell. Okay, I'm looking this way because I've got my notes here. Sir Francis Newport, the head of an English atheist club. He was an atheist, didn't believe in God or hell or the devil. To those gathered around his deathbed, he said, you need not tell me there is no God, for I know there is one, and that I am in his presence. So right before he died, the unseen realm seemed to have opened to him. You need not tell me there's no hell, was the second thing he said. I feel myself already slipping. Wretches, cease your idle talk about there being hope for me. I know I am lost forever. Oh, that fire! Oh, the insufferable pangs of hell! Oh, that I could lie for 1,000 years upon the fire that is never quenched to purchase the favor of God and be united to him again. But a fruitless wish, millions and millions of years will bring me no nearer the end of my torments than one poor hour. Oh, eternity, eternity, forever and forever. Oh, the insufferable pangs of hell. And then he died. That's terrifying. But there's a lot of people at their death. There's report after report after report, whether they're on any kind of drugs that would cause a hallucination or not. They all have similar things happen. They will wake out of a deep coma they've been in maybe for months, or they haven't spoken to anyone for weeks. And suddenly, right before they die, they are totally alert, awake. They're verbal, and they speak of things they are seeing in the rooms or seeing beyond this veil that we are behind, that we can't see past. It's pretty crazy, and it's pretty sad to be in a room, wouldn't you think, to hear the kind of things that guy just said? David Hume, an atheist philosopher famous for his philosophy of empiricism and skepticism of religion, he cried loud on his deathbed, "I am in flames!" It said his desperation was a horrible scene, and he died. My God, is there hell to pay when you live for the devil? It kind of sounds like it if you go by these people. Were they hallucinating? Why do they always talk about flames and fire and this? I had a nurse friend tell me years ago that she was in the room with a woman that died that knew God, that she had been in a coma for months, and right before she died, she woke up and looked up and said, "Oh, do you see him?" And they were startled because they were expecting her to pass away any minute. And they just said, "What?" And she goes, "The angels, they've come to get me." And then with a big smile, she just reached up and she was gone. Wow. How comforting to the family to know that angels carried their loved one to the pearly gates and beyond. But those that had the fire burning on them, I don't think they had that experience, do you? Thomas Edison, we all know about Thomas Edison. He was the great inventor. He utters, "It's very beautiful over there," just before taking his last breath. Well, he didn't see flames. I suppose we'll meet him one day if we go to heaven. "It is beautiful," were the dying words of a famous English poet, Elizabeth Barrett Browning. She wrote many beautiful poems. You can find her in history and in the poem books. She was very, very good at what she did. Now, this is a story about a little girl named Lillian at 10 years old. She lay dying. She told her father that there were crowds of children waiting for her and were calling her by her new name. You know, it's funny that in the Word of God, God says He'll give us a new name when we get to eternity. So they were calling her a new name, although she could not remember what it was when telling her father. And as she breathed her last breath, she whispered, "Yes, yes, I come, I come." And she died. She left. Her spirit was gone. In her book, They Walked Among Us, Lewis Harris recalled the passing of her father. He whispered to his wife that it was time for him to leave and apologized for not being able to bid farewell to Ted, their son, who was serving in the British Army in France. Father was quiet for some time, Harris wrote. His eyes were closed. Then, quite unexpectedly, he sat up unaided. His eyes open, his face radiant. He stretched out his arms and joyfully exclaimed, "George! Austin!" These were the names of his dead brothers. A beautiful smile transformed his thin face. With a deep sigh of satisfaction, he lay back on his pillow and passed peacefully to the spirit world. Wow. That's the way I want to go. I want to go seeing all my relatives greeting me as I'm headed home. Dr. W.T. O'Hara reported the case of a dying 10-year-old girl on a ship of which he was a medical officer. I thought this was amazing. As he sat next to a girl, O'Hara sensed a presence in the room but was unable to see it. So as he checked the girl's pulse and determined that her heart was still beating, the room grew brighter and seemed to gather in waves of blue and white and gold all over the child's body. The girl looked up and murmured, "Oh, look! How beautiful!" At which time O'Hara saw a misty, luminous globe over her head. The girl then cried out, "Oh, Mama, I see the way, and it is all bright and shining." Then the light rose rapidly and disappeared at the ceiling, at which time the girl died. Wow. When the captain entered the cabin, he told O'Hara that he and 4 other officers who came with him had just seen a ball of blue fire right over their heads in the smoking room. They observed it float to the door and turn toward the cabin occupied by O'Hara and the young girl. John Belushi, remember him? He was born in 1949 and he died in 1982. He was one of the people on Saturday Night Live that was really funny. He made movies that we all liked. His last words to anyone was, "Just don't leave me alone," after he injected the Class A drugs that killed him. "They have no eyes," my grandfather on his deathbed said. "They have no eyes." Still gives me chills to hear that voice of that man. Would you imagine somebody saying that when you know they're fixing to die? Ugh, I don't know. You know, eyes are the window of the soul, they say, and I look in eyes to tell what somebody's saying or if they're believable, and to not have any eyes, it's like, my goodness. All right, let's see. There was a man that was at the deathbed of a man. And the last things he said, he kept saying over and over, and this is creepy. "The body's in the woods next to the oak tree." And he kept saying it over and over. So the doctor, you know, when he died, they contacted the police to notify them to search in the woods behind the man's house, but they never found anything under any oak trees. That's pretty crazy. There was a lab person that gave this account. I had to go to the ER to draw blood from a cold stroke patient that just came in. I got there and it was just me and him before he went. He looked at me and said, "Am I dead? I'm in hell." He died. Poor old man. He just said, "I'm in hell." My goodness, can you imagine? I don't know. There was a nephew that passed away of mine. This is very personal. He had cystic fibrosis. Out of 3 brothers, 2 of them, sadly had cystic fibrosis. The youngest one passed away before the middle child. The oldest one didn't have it, and he's still alive today. But the little one was fixing to pass away, and my sister-in-law and my mother-in-law told me about it. We weren't there at his death. But he died, and then the doctor resuscitated him, and he came back. Well, they had been talking about heaven. They'd been talking about where he was going was a beautiful place. They had been talking about that's where God is. You'll be in his safe arms. You go up there and wait. We'll see you again someday. You'll live forever. And he died. But he came back and looked at his mother and said, "Mom, I want you to come with me. It's so beautiful over there." And then he passed away. Now that really happened in my lifetime. So I know something happens. I know that. I'm a seer. Sometimes I see spirits, okay. I was in the room with a dying relative that really hadn't been a very good person most of their life. And they wrestled demons, many, many demons. As they were laying in the bed in a coma, dying, I watched as I sat there waiting for his last breath, about a 10-foot tall, dark, humanoid figure walking back and forth in the room like the Grim Reaper. It was very terrifying. I wondered if it was there to take him to his eternal home. I hope not, but it wasn't. There was no angels in the room. There was no joy in the room. There was no light in the room. It was just this dark spirit walking back and forth. That has made me very sad, because when somebody is that far, you just don't know what's going to happen. It's best to make yourself right now so you don't get in that situation. When I was young, my grandmother had a heat stroke, and I heard her tell about it years ago. My pop had gone to pick up some of us kids to come and visit with them for 2 weeks, and my grandmother had stayed at the house, so she decided to go out and mow the yard, and it was in South Texas, and it was super, super hot. Well, she had a heat stroke, and she passed out in the house, and nobody was there, and she saw her dead mother and her dead sister. She had a sister that died very, very young. I don't remember. I think she got sick. I don't remember what was wrong with her, but she died very young. And they were both standing over her going, and her name was Gladys, and they were saying, "Gladys, come up here with us." Well, she said, I don't really want to do that because Pat and the kids are coming and I need to be here to help. And so after that, she got well, and when we came, she just broke down in my pop's arms, and nobody knew what was wrong with her. I remember seeing that, but nobody shared it with us little kids what was going on. But when I got older, she shared with me what had happened at that time. And she told me later, she said, I wished I'd have gone ahead and just gone home. I didn't know how bad life was going to get. And my poor grandmother died of Alzheimer's, a slow death. So, you know, sometimes I wonder if we ought to just say, okay, and just check out if we see that invitation. I don't know. But anyway, I guess God would have took her. It was really her time. He was just giving her a choice. All right, in the 70s, I had a friend that died during an operation. She was hemorrhaging. And so she was down to like 1.5 pints or something like blood, and she almost died. Well, she did die. Well, when she came back, she shared with me, and she was not a believer in Jesus Christ at the time. And she said when she died, she felt these horrible dark spirits dragging her downward to hell. And right before she got there, the darker and darker and darker it got, and right before she got there, she all of a sudden was being raised back up really fast and plopped back into her body, and she lived. And that terrified her. She came to know the Lord later. I don't think she ever was a strong Christian, but you know, God's faithful. He said, he that calls on the name of the Lord in no wise will he cast out. She believed as much as she knew how, so I believe she's there. And I have an ex-husband, and this is the last thing I'm going to tell you, that was the father of my 2 boys before I remarried and had my 2 girls. And he remarried and lived with this lady for 15 years, I think. Well, then he got esophageal cancer. If anybody knows about that, you die really quick from it. Now, my ex-husband didn't always live a godly life. He was really wild. He was horrible when we were married, and that's why we got a divorce. But later, in his later years, he got saved after he had an aneurysm and should have died, but God extended his life and brought him back from the dead when his brain was sliding down into his brainstem. They had already said he was gone. And our youngest son went and prayed for him, the prayer of faith, with his friend. And after that, he started shaking violently, and after that, he started getting better and better. He was never totally himself again, but he had most of his senses. He couldn't walk good. He was handicapped. One of his eyes went this way. He had brain damage, but he still could comprehend. When he came back, he and his wife gave their lives to Jesus Christ. So the last few years of his life, he lived for God, the best he knew how. Well, right before he died, my oldest son called him and said, Dad, are you sure you're ready to go? And he said, yes, son, I'm ready. I've made it right with God. Well, then he slipped into a coma. They were sitting there as he just breathed so light, just faintly. And he was in a coma. He slipped out, And all of a sudden, like all his life came back, he sat up in bed, opened his eyes, looked up to the ceiling, raised his arms, and grinned real big, and beamed this light all over his face, and then he laid back down and died. That let me know he made it. This nurse friend of mine also told me one other incident, the one that was in the room, that saw that the old lady told her that, do you see them? The angels have come to take me home. Well, there was another man that died. And right before he died, he started screaming, my feet are on fire! My feet are on fire! And he's screaming in torment and dies. So guys, I'm just here to tell you, I tend to believe that there is a place that we are going to go when we die. I don't believe we just turn into a vapor and blow off into the wind and are nothing when we die. And of course, I believe in God, so I believe in heaven and I believe in hell. But do you? That's the question. I think that these things kind of show us, in a way, that there's so many more accounts I could have brought out, but I just wanted to show you the accounts of people that had lived for the devil, served him, wrote, just did all this terrible stuff. They had opposite experiences. People that had lived a good life or confessed they knew Jesus Christ had good experiences. Those that hadn't had bad experiences. There was a guy that was famous. His last name was Jobs, that just died, and he's the only one that I couldn't tell where he went, because his famous last words were, "Wow, oh, wow," and then he died. So it was either a good wow or a bad wow. I don't know. But anyway, it was wow wherever he went. But, there's a point where we're going to slip out of these bodies someday. Maybe sooner or later. My oldest daughter just told me her and her boyfriend were on this windy road, and this wide load came around the corner. They didn't even have a truck in front of it warning people there was a wide load. They came this far from getting hit by that big load. It would have killed them. It would have killed them. And my daughter made the statement, you just never know when it's your time. It can be so quick, you have no chance to make it right then. And I believe that. We need to live like, we're going to die today, every day, just in case. Do you know where you're going? I just wanted to share this stuff with you. I thought it was interesting. I hope you don't think I'm morbid. I just think it's interesting that at the point of death, even when people are in comas, they come back and have some last word to say. I think that's interesting. All right, guys, stay well. Keep your head up. Everything is going to be all right. Let me know what you think, guys. If you want to say something, leave me a like below. Write me. I try to write everybody back. I like people. I like to talk. All right, God bless. See you later.